Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is meeting number 6, Monday, March 25th. All public in attendance, you can sign at this attendance sheets on the side. All cell phones must be turned off, and the meeting is being audio and video recorded. At this point, I'd like to ask, are there any pecuniary or disclosures of conflict of interest? Seeing none. I'd like everyone to stand for the singing of O Canada, and it will be followed by the opening petition by Councillor Rayner. O Canada, our home and native land, true patron of, in all thy sons command, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, a true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We gather together here today intent on doing good work, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly. May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve with respect for all. May our personal faiths give us strength to act honestly and well in all matters before us. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any changes in orders of items on the agenda? Seeing none. Are there any? We're going to move to requests to address items on the agenda. Are there any members of the public present who wish to address a specific item on the agenda as permitted by Section 6.7 of the procedural bylaw, which reads as follows? Requests to address items on the agenda are restricted to specific items as follows per Section 6.7. Any members of the public wishing to address items on the agenda? Come forward. I'm going to go to Mr. Furr first, and then the front. State your name, address. You know the drill.
I know the drill. Perfect. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. My name is Chris Furr, and I reside at 5165 Elko Road in Wellandport. I'm here tonight to discuss the current state of budget deliberations. While I've heard plenty of conversation in the community regarding the budget, I wasn't sure of the need to address council until I called the office the other day looking to book a room for West Lincoln Minor Hockey's annual AGM. Due to budget deliberations and staffing, there was no guarantee the facility be open to rent a space. This, coupled with the fact that township chambers are no longer available for community meetings, this was passed as part of the rate adjustment, it creates an issue for West Lincoln Minor Hockey. I'd hate to see this situation arise for other community groups, where they're turned away from this beautiful new facility and looking for space elsewhere. I'm sure you're well aware that I believe there must be the necessary increases in the budget to support recreational staffing and programming. The new Recreation Community Center and Library have been well received by the members of the public who have visited the site to date, and all see the potential for this location to be a hub of the community. With the support of council, this can be realized. The proposed schedule on page 290 of your agenda clearly indicates how critical staffing is to keeping this community center open and a place where the community can find multiple recreational opportunities. Not to mention, with the spring weather warming up, additional outdoor activities will be taking place on the skate park, the splash pad and playground. It will be an exciting place to be at. As a resident of Wellandport and spending most of my life living on a gravel road, I am also well aware of the infrastructure and road challenges that face council annually. I hope that the federal and provincial funding announcements will help address the needs of this community, and I hope it is spent wisely. I fully support council moving forward with the roads needs study in an effort to develop a plan for regular maintenance, dust control measures, and improvements to our rural road network. Like recreation, these improvements come with a cost, and yes, the taxpayer bears that cost, but in the end, the entire community will benefit. While you have an important task in determining the budget for next year, I want to ensure that all councillors have the correct info moving forward before deliberating later tonight. On February 25th, I addressed council as president of Minor Hockey to offer our appreciation for the hard work and efforts of staff and the decisions made by council to open the facility for Family Day. At this meeting, Councillor Rayner made a request that parent members of Minor Hockey make financial contributions to support the financing of this new facility. This comment concerned me, and it indicated to me that the councillor was unaware of the efforts by the minor hockey community to financially support the project. Then, as reported in the Grimsby Lincoln News, at the March 4th recreation meeting, Councillor Rayner further questioned the fundraising efforts tied to the new facility and indicated that no fundraising was done and that rates be increased to offset operational cost. I would like to remind the councillor and other members of this council of a few things. Number one, Minor Hockey has made a contribution to the capital campaign and is working with the township to make additional financial contributions to this facility. Minor Hockey parents are also taxpayers who are making an annual contribution to the facility through their taxes. A new rate schedule for facility rentals was recently approved before council, which increased our ICE user fees by up to 18% before taxes. A large number of Minor Hockey members are also part of the community that contributed to the capital campaign on a personal level or as part of their businesses that operate within the community. And there has been $1.3 million raised to date through the Together a Vibrant Tomorrow capital campaign, which is more than the $1 million target in the original MERS facility budget. As a community member, a volunteer with Minor Hockey, and the chair of the capital campaign, I am disappointed by Councillor Rayner's comments. While I can look past these comments and continue to work with council, I'm concerned what these comments say to other members of the campaign team who took time away from work and family to help raise funds for this community. To the members of the community who donated anywhere from $1 to $500,000 to the campaign, and to those who have volunteered their time to make community events a success, and to the Kiwanis volunteers who actively sold seats and benches to help support the campaign. Moving forward, I respectfully ask that Councillor Rayner and other members of council ensure they have the correct information when having conversations that are on the public record. These comments find their way back to the community and have the potential to deter individuals and groups from stepping up and supporting the community with both time and money in the future. Thank you for your time this evening, and I wish you the best in making important decisions tonight to move our community forward in a positive way.
Actually, I'm going to go in front of you there,
For strategy about that?
Oh, I saw your hand the first time. I went behind you. I'm not going to do that a second time.
That's all right. Just need a second here. Okay, Mr. Mayor, members of council and staff, my name is Sharon Waddingham. I would like to speak with you tonight regarding both the capital and operating budget with respect to the new West Lincoln Community Centre. I have addressed council before, prior to the capital budget for this facility being approved many years ago. As I mentioned during my previous presentation, I worked as a senior manager for the Toronto Parks and Recreation Department before retiring here in Smithville. My work experience required me to be involved in over 50 new capital projects, including community centers, arenas, pools, and parks. I was responsible for the management of recreation facilities, parks, and recreation programs and services. I oversaw dozens of facilities similar to the one we have here in Smithville. I just want to set the context of my work experience so you have an understanding of the comments I'm making. When I previously addressed council, I strongly suggested for them to consider approving the new operating budget for the community center at the same time the capital budget was being approved. I had mentioned that my former municipality learned that this approach is the best way to get a full understanding of the financial requirements and implications for a new capital project. It would help council decide that if this $23 million facility is built, can the required yearly operating funds be financially supported, or does the scope of the project need to be altered? It provides a solid foundation on what money is needed so there are no surprises. Council decided, I guess, not to go with this approach. At another meeting, the CAO at the time said he anticipated an increase of approximately $100,000 for the operating budget. I disagreed with him and said there would be much higher costs with this facility. So here we are today in a situation where there are limited funds for the 2019 operating budget to adequately staff the facility and provide new programs. Based upon my experience, even the monies being requested for both full-time and part-time staff and other operational requirements is not adequate for this size and type of facility. The fact that there is no additional monies for recreation programs, especially for children and youth, is very disappointing and shocking, to say the least. I think the community expects new programs and the facilities open now that a gym, multi-purpose rooms, and track are available. Of course, there is the opportunity to work with volunteers from the community to develop programs. This approach can be very successful, but it takes staff resources to do it effectively. I do not recommend using volunteers for the operation of the facility for a variety of reasons. The facility is very large and has been designed with some high maintenance components, such as lots of floor-to-ceiling glass and large open areas. Based upon my visits to the facility, it's hard for staff to keep up with the cleaning now. Appropriate staff resources need to be given to clean, maintain, and operate the facility. I recognize the fact that both members of council and residents continue to have mixed feelings about this facility. However, we now have an amazing recreation center and library that's the hub of the community. I have been there numerous times to enjoy the library, watch our grandchildren skate, and tour the facility. Our family members live in Smithville, so I know how valuable this facility will be for all age groups. I have 3 recommendations for consideration. Approve the requested funds as a minimum for the operating budget for the community center and library. It provides a solid base to build upon for the 2020 budget. Allocate and approve some funds, like an example of a net of $15,000 in principle now for the 2020 operating budget for some new recreation programs for next year. This will allow staff to begin the planning process for programs that can commence in January 2020. If they have to wait for the 2020 operating budget to be approved, programs won't be able to start until much later in the year. The third is open the gym, multipurpose rooms, and track on Sundays from September to June. It's a valuable time for all ages to enjoy recreation activities. It will also be a good time to make money from rentals. In closing, I love my community and the town where we have chosen to retire. I want the West Lincoln Community Center to be successful for residents of all ages. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your comments. Mr. Murray.
Good evening. Ross Murray, 25 Streamside Drive. As I was reading through the revised draft of the 2019 budget last Friday night, I became very irritated and sent off a quick email to my councillor and Mayor Blisman. Over the weekend, that irritation did not subside, and I sent a couple more. With that, I will simply read those emails, which are brief and to the point. This is the Friday night email. Just finished reading through the 2019 draft budget and have the following comments. A 5.63% increase on top of the region's 3.8% is unacceptable. The 7 service level changes requesting $136,100 represents 2.1% of the 5.63% increase. A majority of that 2.1% belongs to the enhanced services for the recreational center. I am sorry, but I'm not buying the enhanced service angle. I originally put nonsense, but I thought I'd tone it down. We were told the 15.2% increase for the recreational center included all new additional operating costs. If it was an oversight or an intentional omission, it does not matter. The taxpayer should not be responsible for fixing. If you believe that these services are necessary, I would suggest you find them somewhere else in your operating budget. Taxpayers could also use the 2.1% for their own enhanced operating needs. The second email was on Saturday, and it was a little toned down a bit. Upon further review of the draft budget, I would like to share this observation with you. Schedule G, West Lincoln Community Center 2009 budget impacts. The financial plan would seem to indicate that for 2019 budget, $119,100 is available to offset operating costs. The revised draft for non-enhanced services has been changed to $87,400, winter control removed. This would seem to indicate that $31,700 should be available to offset the enhanced service request. Not sure why it was not utilized. Email number 3. Another observation. Using a $100,000 prior year surplus to lower the levy is not reducing operating costs. That could have easily been used to cover the $106,000 enhanced costs without increasing the tax levy. I find the threat of not providing services at the rec center offensive. My response to that would be as follows. I will give you the $106,000 for the rec center, but you need to reduce costs elsewhere. If you would like me to deliver this message, I would be pleased to do so. I just did. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from the public, from the gallery? Those who wish to speak? Seeing none. Oh, okay. I know.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm just going to read the email quickly that I sent out to all the council just to make sure that everyone has read it so that I can express my concerns. Let's pull it up here, sorry. So, dear member of councils, first off, I would like to start by saying what a great accomplishment the new community center is for the residents of West Lincoln. Thank you for allowing this positive advancement for our community to take place. I utilize the facility at least 2 to 3 times a week, sometimes more, and I do not have children enrolled in skating or hockey. Unfortunately, I have recently been made aware that the hours of the new facility may correspond with the season's ice time due to fiscal constraints. There are many reasons I find this unfortunate, but mostly I had hoped that the councillors in the township did not build this facility to accommodate a small population of the community, in this case for hockey, similarly to the Leisureplex that was seemingly built for the soccer community. I have given the closure of the facility some thought and would like to offer you the following concerns and questions for your consideration. I was excited and looking forward to a summer of using our new space with my young children, both 3 and 5 years old. A summer full of splashing in the water park, playing at the park, picnic lunches with a break from the hot sun at the library, or a race around the walking track, or to go play some basketball. With the closure of this facility, where will my recently potty-trained toddler go to use the washroom? And where will both of my children change into their bathing suits? Will the washrooms be available for use? Will we need to use the library? Or will we have to use the porta potty that the Women's Baseball League is forced to use, or has been forced to use for many years? Will the meeting rooms or community rooms still be available for rent throughout the summer months to generate revenue and provide a clean and welcoming space for residents to host their baby showers, bridal showers, birthday parties, and so on? Has the council considered the ramifications of closing the community center over the summer months? For example, I recently canceled my gym membership because the walking track and gym were made available. However, if the walking track and gymnasium are unavailable over the summer months, I would be inclined to start my gym membership back up and essentially boycott or have a disinvestment in the new facility due to the lack of access throughout the year, as I might have feelings of that the facility was not built for me but built for a specific community. Where will the children's summer camps be held? Will the facility be only available to the demographic with children enrolled in summer camps? Is this fair to residents without younger children? Further to the points above, and after a quick review of the proposed budget, has the council considered amending or delaying the following proposals to secure a staff member to run the new facility in the summer? Instead of investing $17,000 into the township's website this year, could this be delayed a year or two and alternatively create a new and free social media page on Facebook to keep residents informed and up to date? This potentially could be done on a volunteer basis, as there is a member of the community who already basically performs this function. Delaying the point and paint of the Public Works building for another year, which would be $22,000 in savings. Allowing residents and informing residents of the option to donate park benches to our local cemeteries in memorandum of a loved one instead of spending $6,000 this year. Delaying the addition of a self-checkout machine at the Smithville Library, as there's rarely a lineup at the kiosk and the library is already brand new, a savings of $7,500. Removing the immediate addition of another soccer field to the Leisureplex, a savings of $60,000. Combining all of the above would result in a savings of $112,500, which is more than enough to hire another employee to assist with the arena in the winter and summer. Even with adding the new soccer field this year and pushing back the other items mentioned above, there will still be adequate funds to keep the new facility open throughout the summer. Furthermore, it has also been brought to my attention that members of our council have proposed a wage increase due to the government's cancelling of the 1/3 tax exemption for councillors. According to the Government of Canada, this tax exemption was removed as it provides an unfair advantage to other Canadians. I can speak to this personally, as I have been a public servant with the federal government for over 11 years. I have worked in an office at my home for roughly 6 years in a policy environment. As a cost savings initiative for Canadian taxpayers, the only pieces of government equipment paid for in my home are a locking file cabinet and a laptop. I do not claim telephone calls, paper, kilometers within my geographic work location, internet, and so on. I do not receive any tax benefits for my work performed as a public servant. And if I may speak frankly and honestly, neither should any elected official. In fact, all home-based federal employees must sign an agreement stating they will not receive any tax benefits for the opportunity to work from home. It was your choice to run for office, and in doing so, it was your choice to carry out work-related functions at your home and potentially outside of a 9-to-5 work environment. While I can appreciate the negative effects the end of this tax incentive may have on your financial situation, this was first proposed in the 2017 budget, and any elected official, particularly those who ran in the most recent municipal elections, should have been aware of these changes and adjusted their finances accordingly, or alternatively should not have chose to run for office again. Additionally, I can also appreciate that councillors in neighbouring communities, Grimsby and Lincoln, may make slightly more than our rural councillors. However, at the end of the day, these communities are not so financially strapped that they cannot afford to keep their community centres open year-round. I sincerely hope that all of our councillors and mayor do not ratify the proposal for raises, as it would result in a clear depiction of fiscal irresponsibility and putting your needs before those within the community you were elected to serve. I truly appreciate the work that our council does, and I know it is a thankless job. But please do not forget why you chose to represent West Lincoln and those who voted for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is it possible to have a copy of that emailed to? Okay, thank you. Great. All right. I'll ask again. Any other members of the gained some courage while she spoke? Okay. I'm going to put my eyes down and go to the next one now. There are no appointments or presentations this evening. At this point, we have regional councillor remarks, so I'm going to call upon Councillor Woodavine to come to the mic.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council, staff, and public. This is my time to update mayors and members of council and public this evening what we've been working on in our community on behalf of the regional councils. This evening, I'd like to share follow-up on the lines of sight and guardrails that I mentioned last month, protecting the transmissions around the transmission lines around the wind project. I had further discussion with our new director, Public Works, Mike DiPola, on what action could be taken, and it was agreed that we would, that the Niagara Region Public Works staff would be actively involved, or was actively involved in the installation, and this is where we could find our resolution to that concern. So, in respect, I planned a meeting scheduled in early April to discuss our options within the Traffic Safety Act for this meeting to better understand how we might be able to proceed with these concerns. Also in this meeting, I will bring concerns about the action to address safety concerns at the intersection of Yonge Street and 30 Road and what the future lies for there. There's been past discussions of that, possibly that public works yard moving. So I would like to know where the Niagara region is in that process and then bring that information back. I also will discuss with public works staff on that intersection and with Peter Vujic. I met with him, and we're going to do a traffic study in early May after the half load season, because that way we'll be able to kind of better understand the full extent of the traffic flow at this intersection, because right now half load they're going out to Beansville Mountain Road versus coming this way. So last study was done prior to the guardrails being installed, and I think the study was probably about 5 years old. So one is something current that we could look at and then analyze. And some residents have brought to my attention some concerns of the future of the lagoons at the east end of town, and what is the status and what's the long-term plans for these ponds within our community boundaries. So I will be bringing that up and to see where the region is. Maybe our staff knows some answers there, but I know that Niagara-on-the-Lake is decommissioning kind of lagoons, and they're building a new treatment plant, but there's some conversation of naturalization areas, so maybe there's some opportunity for us to enhance that area for some naturalization area to tie in with passive area. Also, I entertained a request from the West Niagara Agriculture Society on establishing permanent no parking signs on Mud Street from the rise in the west to the intersection of Mud Street and 12, and this was brought to my concern as more events are taking place, and there's some issues with some people parking on the side of the road and some safety concerns, and there's some events. Also, being it's an agriculture society, it seems to attract animal rights people, and without no parking signs there, it'd be hard for police to enforce safe traffic movement along that area. And Alderman Rayner requested to myself a completed cost of the rebuild at Regional Road 14 and the Welland River, the reconstruction there. So I will get that information for him and other members of council where that came in on budget on that project. I don't think there was any concerns. It was generally there was. I think everybody was pleased that that has now been remedied there. That's always been a bit of a concern with that bridge and the design, the safety design there. And then at the region, on March the 7th, we had a presentation by Kevin Smith. He's our director of the EMS services in Niagara. And he shared an overview of the call volumes and with the increased aging population. So they've been working and extensively reviewing their service delivery, and if they've managed to decrease patients going to the ER by 42%. And this is done by kind of creating a holistic approach to falling calls and less, we'll call it emergency concerns. And also better coordination with hospitals so that there's less waiting times of our EMS equipment waiting and not being into the field. So this approach was administered by, it's called a mobile integrated health plan. And so in that plan, there's also mental health and addictions response team going out into the field. There's also a safe injection site in St. Catharines, referred to as consumption, and that way EMS can be there to monitor and not go out and have a call later. They can kind of be there to help and understand what other needs need to be addressed with those people. Falls prevention team with an occupational therapist. A lot of seniors seem to fall, and then the ambulance comes, and it's just a matter of teaching them how to get back up, or finding out that, you know, using our resources like that, you know, by having a therapist, an occupational therapist or nurse come to the home and teach them this saves us a lot of call volumes at the hospital. So lastly, the community paramedics have been visiting this out of cold supper programs and also drop-in centers delivering more primary care, which is important so that they can catch some of those people that need that extra bit of care. So good report. Really impressed with our EMS service here in Niagara. They're adopting kind of a model through, was it Ireland, or it was kind of a model they were looking at and sharing information on how to provide those services. So I thought there were, and other communities outside of Niagara are looking at what Niagara is doing. So that's kind of neat to know that Niagara is kind of at the forefront of trying to look at different ways to administer EMS services. And then on March the 20th, we attended a Planning and Economic Development Committee, and some key points were, and I'm not sure if Director Brian Treble has mentioned this, but some key points were to create MOUs with municipalities to allow municipalities to design their secondary plans. And then there was a series of presentations. One was on the Brock District Plan around Brock University and the regional headquarters, looking at that as intensification type areas. The other was the obvious Glendale Niagara District Plan study. And then we had a presentation by the Economic Development strategy looking at 2019 to 2024, how we may grow economic development here in Niagara. Councillors expressed that they were looking at this, I guess it's called keen performance indicators, which I think is important, is to make sure that accountability is built into these processes, and there's follow-ups and matrices that go around those type of planning projects. So they're two large areas. I believe the Glendale is like 400 hectares, so that's a fairly sizable area, and of course everything will be comprehensive. And so our last presentation was on an employment inventory. So I think it was relative to us, and they collected data annually from May till September, and this gives the Niagara region kind of a micro level of analysis versus StatsCan, which is every 5 years. And so what they've done is they've done some GSI mapping to capture the 11,000 businesses here in Niagara. So quick snapshot was 11,000 business surveyed, 142,000 jobs captured with 20 business sectors represented. 203 were from West Lincoln that participated, and the breakdown kind of out of this information was 8% of the labor force was contracted, 9% was seasonal, and 83% were permanent. So the next step for this information gathering and posting this was to create a data porthole that would be opened by the middle of May through the Niagara Region's website, which I think the demographics and knowing that would be also important for us when we look at employment lands in our growth strategy and what does that labor force look like. So that's my update to council on my last month's involvement at the region. And I think if any councillors have any questions for me, I'm more than excited to answer them.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Trombetta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for joining us, Councillor Witteveen. Nice to have you back. A couple things I just want you to touch upon. Possibly where are we at with some more police presence? I'm getting a lot of fielding calls now that the weather is changing. Sun's out. That foot's down on the gas. So just wondering if we're getting some more police presence doing to our speeding and that kind of stuff now that the weather has changed, Councillor Witteveen.
Okay.
If you can give me something on that, and then I'll talk about the other one. Will probably that I have questions on is more or less the. I'm hearing things that I live in the west part of West Lincoln, and we might be Hamilton pretty soon. So if you can clarify on some of those topics, especially me because I do live in the west end of West Lincoln.
Well, I would. My response to the second question would be that our mayor and other mayors of our region have met and have had some preliminary discussions of our future governance here in Niagara. So at this point,
and the only reason I'm asking that is because I got a phone call on my way in about that. So then I just figured while I have you up on the podium, I can get maybe your take on it, right? So
anything's possible with the governance of the day. But yeah, at this point in time, I am not aware of where we are. There's been some preliminary discussions with mayors and members of that committee.
Thought maybe
and
more
at
or
this
less
point,
on the
we
region.
haven't had an update on that. And I, other than from our chair Bradley, was discussed that the opportunity was there for us at the Niagara region to find a, we'll say, made in Niagara type solution and present that to the province as going forward. And what is that? We are not sure because we haven't been part of that discussion.
Okay, very well. And like I said, just on the police presence, I know the weather's changing, and we're going to be fielding a lot of calls relatively soon, and if not now as well, right? If we are getting some more police presence out in our areas, ways of stopping these traffic violations that are happening on all our rural roads, especially, right? I've even driven down a couple of the rural roads actually on my way to work, and I see a bunch of tire burnouts and circles and all that kind of stuff at 16 Road and in front of my house. Was that in front of your house? Yeah. There was a couple. So someone's out there, and obviously they're excelling at rapid pace. So I'm just wondering where we at. If the region mentioned anything about giving us more police presence in our area.
No, totally. Councillor Trombetta, it's springtime. Farmers will be out on the roads with their tractors and equipment, so there will be that concern also with that level of safety. So I'll bring that up with a board member this Thursday, and bring that to the board member, the Police Services Board attention, as that gentleman also lives in a rural area and probably has the similar concerns as us, so what better person to take our concerns to.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Witteveen.
Councillor Riley.
I'll make it quick. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to piggyback on Councillor Trombetta, on the corner of Shuri and 16, we had a similar situation. It looked like someone, I don't know what time of night and day they did it, but definitely put a good stain on the roads, and then it went across to someone's front yard. You could see, I don't know, it must be a good 1.5 feet deep. They must have had some fun. So again, if you could really express that concern we have, we're hearing it up from all fronts here, and we really need them to hear us. So we need to do something about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Councillor. Say that into the mic. Section 8 is confirmation of minutes. Council minutes regular. Councillor Cody, you have that resolution?
I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Riley that the minutes of the open session portion of the February 25th, 2019 regular council meeting be accepted and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the February 25th, 2019 regular council meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution. It was moved by Councillor Cody and seconded by Councillor Riley. Any comments or questions? Councillor Ganan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to make a quick comment about watching that back. I found it very uncomfortable the night of that meeting, but I was also the night before I was getting ready to go on holiday, so I don't think I was on top of it as much as I should have been. But it very much was of concern to me when I watched back the video, and I'm glad that Mr. Chris Ferrer is here tonight because I feel that this council owes him an apology. He came before us that night simply to express gratitude from minor hockey on behalf of the fact that staff had worked hard and council had supported that to get the arena open and ready so that a tournament could be held and the family day activities could go on. And instead of just thanking him for his thank you, so to speak, he was put under quite severe pressure, I felt, especially watching it back. And none of us stopped it. The chair didn't stop it, and none of the rest of us spoke up on behalf of, hey, this is not the time. This was really just a thank you. And in actual fact, I think Mr. Ferrer addressed it tonight a little bit in that he himself was the chair of the capital campaign and spent a great deal of time, energy, and time away from his own family and energy attending meetings and meeting one-on-one with people, trying to find those pockets of money that people came forward with. And so I did apologize to him privately when I saw him, but I think that a public apology on behalf of our council is worthy of mention tonight too. So, Chris, we're sorry. Hopefully you'll come back again and speak before, and we won't put you through such terrible ropes. So, thank you.
Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'll add to that. Yeah, please accept our apology for not intervening there. We do appreciate everything that you do, Chris, for the youth there and in our community, and even leading the capital campaign. I myself, being relatively new to all this, probably still learning where my authority lies. So if you felt by any means that we were not standing up for you, we do apologize and know that all your fine efforts have not gone unnoticed. So thank you.
Any others? Seeing none. All those in favor? And that's carried. Next, we have Council Minutes Special, March 4th. Councillor Riley, you have that resolution.
I do. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Cody, that the minutes of the March 4th, 2019 Special Council meeting be accepted.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution. Moved by Councillor Riley, seconded by Councillor Cody. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. C, public meeting under the Planning Act, March 5th. Councillor Jonker, you have that resolution.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ganan, that the minutes of the public meeting held on March 5th, 2019 under Section 34 of the Planning Act with respect to zoning bylaw amendment for Roger and Lori Palacero, file number 1601-001-19 be accepted.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution. Moved by Councillor Jonker, seconded by Councillor Ganan. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to 9, there are no communications this evening. Number 10 is Mayor's remarks. I have a couple that I'd like to address at this time. It was alluded to earlier. But I just wanted to highlight two wonderful news items. The first is that the provincial government, through the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Mr. Steve Clark, announced that they are giving $725,000 as a one-time, no strings attached grant to the municipality. You can bet that there's no shortage of people who are looking to use that wisely in our community. It will not impact this year's budget at this time, since we're there and we haven't received the money, and it was just announced last Thursday. But we're very thankful to put forward in this current budget a strategic plan initiative so that we would be able to use that monies very wisely. Again, it's a one-time, no strings attached grant of $725,000. The second thing that I wanted to address is the fact that the federal government has announced also that they are going to double our gas tax refund this year in the amount of $400,000 and change. $400,000 and change. We'll go with that. We can get the details of that cleaned up. But that too is a one-time double up of our gas tax. And so the opportunities are abundant for using it wisely in our community, hopefully to address the asset management gap that we are finding out about. So I'm very thankful to the federal and provincial governments for these initiatives, and we hope they're generous again next year and the year following. We have moving on to a report of committee. Planning, Building, and Environmental on March 5th. Councillor Ganan, you have that resolution.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Cody that the minutes of the open session portion of the March 5th, 2019 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted and the recommendations contained therein be approved with the exception of items, if there are any, and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the March 5th, 2019 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with Section 239 of the Municipal Act.
Councillors, you have heard the resolution moved by Councillor Ganan, seconded by Councillor Cody. Any comments or questions? Councillor Ganan.
Thank you. I'd also like to I'm off again. Okay. I'd also like to comment on that. One of the things being that I was somewhat remiss, I felt, when we were looking at voting on the additional money for councillor salaries. I did speak against it, but I did not ask for a recorded vote, and I wish that I had, because the chair also neglected to ask if anyone was opposed, and I would like it stated, please, that I was opposed to that. I did not vote for that at the time, and I remain opposed. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. And I apologize for not asking whether, oh, sorry. I don't always ask. I see a number of hands, so I could imagine it was me. B, Administration, Finance, Fire Committee of March 18. Councillor Rayner, you have that resolution.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Riley that the minutes of Administration, Finance, Fire Committee meeting held on March the 18th, 2019 be accepted, and that the recommendations contained therein be approved with the exception of item numbers, and there are none at this time.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Rayner and seconded by Councillor Riley. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Item C, Public Works Rec and Arena for March 18. Councillor Trombetta, you have that resolution.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rayner, that the minutes of the open session portion of the Public Works Recreation Arena Committee meeting being held on March 18th, 2019 be accepted, and the recommendations contained therein be approved with the exception of items.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Trombetta and seconded by Councillor Rayner. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Items 12 are reconsideration and 13 notice of motion to rescind. There are none, so we're moving on to other business. Point A is Director of Finance Donna DeFilippis recommendation report RFDT-7-19-2019 operating and capital budget. Councillor Cody, you have that resolution.
I do, and bear with me. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ganan that one, that report RFD-T-07-19 regarding the 2019 operating and capital budget dated March 25th, 2019 be received, and 2, that a tax levy of $6,937,670, which represents a 5.77% tax levy increase after factoring in assessment growth, be approved, and 3, that the detailed 2019 capital program attached to Schedule B to this report totaling $7,133,400 be approved, and 4, that water and water use user fees increase by 5% effective July 1st, 2019, and incorporate the revised water and wastewater fees effective July 1st, 2019, and 6, that the balance of capital projects for the years 2020 to 2028, as outlined on Schedule D to this report, be approved in principle, and 7, that tangible capital asset amortization expense estimated at $2,433,523 and post-employment expenses reversal estimated at $14,600 be and are hereby excluded from the 2018 draft operating and capital budget as permitted through Regulation 248/09.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution. Moved by Councillor Cody and seconded by Councillor Ganan. At this point, I'd like to go to Director of Finance DeFilippis for a short PowerPoint presentation on this budget.
Good. I just want to note that that last resolution, number 10, it refers to the 2018 draft operating budget. It should say the 2019. That was a test no one caught. Okay. This evening we present to you the 2019 operating and capital budget for the Township of West Lincoln. Council saw an initial draft budget at the March 4th special council meeting. In addition, a public open house was held on Thursday, March 7th, with approximately 5 members of the public in attendance. Since those meetings, the budget has been further revised and reviewed, and tonight we present those results. In attendance tonight are the directors and the CEO of the library who worked endlessly on this budget and are available to answer any questions. Overall tax levy of $6,937,670 is being recommended in 2019. After factoring in assessment growth, this tax levy increase is 5.77%. Growth is the result of a new assessment that did not exist in the prior year. It represents new builds, additions, and improvements. Essentially, there are more properties sharing in the pool of assessment. The impact is that the first $153,000 of levy increase does not increase taxes. After factoring in growth, the levy increase is 5.77%. This works out to an approximate 5.63 increase in taxes to the average homeowner. For average assessment, we use $363,877, which represents the average assessment for a single detached home, which represents a 5.46% increase over last year's assessment. This slide is an estimate of what the total property tax bill may look like for an average homeowner in West Lincoln. The region and school board portion of taxes are estimates. The region has approved a 3.8% tax increase. However, it is estimated that the impact to West Lincoln will be closer to a 5% tax increase. That is the result of West Lincoln's share in the assessment pool increasing relative to the other municipalities in West Lincoln. Education rates have yet to be provided from the province. We are estimating them at 2%. And in addition, the region has not finalized tax policy for 2019. That's where ratios could be impacted. So again, these are truly estimates. But based on this, the overall tax increase is estimated at 4.78% overall. And this is for property in the urban area, as we've included streetlights and sidewalks. So the levy of $6.9 million includes the costs related to the 7 service level change requests. In Schedule C to the report that Council received, there are detailed justification sheets for each of these requests. The chart that you have in front of you outlines the impact on an annual basis. We show the impact to 2019's budget and also to 2020's budget. These requests either increase service levels or they're to cover services that are currently being provided or trying to be provided, but increased funding is required for them. So the first draft of the budget the Council saw at the beginning of March showed a tax levy of $7,010,670. Since then, the levy request has changed. We've increased the transfer from the prior year surplus to $200,000. It was originally $100,000. When Council first saw the draft budget, the $100,000 that we were using represented the surplus from 2017. The estimated surplus from 2018 is approximately $400,000. We have not finished our financial audit yet, and typically we present to Council a report after the financial statements are audited that outlines the surplus and how it should be used. However, at this point, we are comfortable with increasing the transfer to $200,000. The $400,000 surplus that we are estimating is very much attributable to increased interest revenue that the township saw, a dividend that was not budgeted for, as well as we had very good growth on our supplemental tax levy. So that contributes to this surplus that we're projecting. We reviewed these costs related to operating the new recreation center. Staff had requested a $12,000 increase in contracting out to clean the snow at that facility. After review, that request has been removed from the budget. The urban storm sewer budget has been reduced. There was a request to look at some storm sewer assessments, and it was determined that they did not have to be done this year, probably in the future, but for this year that could be put on hold. So the first 3 items have the impact of decreasing the levy. We did receive some news that the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, the OMPF funding, was decreased for 2019. So it's been reduced by $38,900, which represents approximately 4% reduction in that grant. And as was mentioned in the March meeting and in this report, the province is reviewing that funding in 2019, and hopefully we will have an announcement earlier during our budget process, hopefully in late 2019, so we can budget accordingly if that grant is further reduced. At the March 18th admin meeting, council remuneration was adjusted, impacting the budget, $19,500. And finally, service level change requests total $131,100. This results in a revised levy of $6.9 million. Council will also be approving this evening new water and wastewater rates that will be effective July 1st, 2019. This is in keeping in line with a recommendation from the 2016 Water and Wastewater Rate Study and Financial Plan. The impact to an average residential account is estimated to be $13 per quarterly bill. And as a reminder to Council, water and wastewater, with a combined operating budget of approximately $3.5 million, is funded 100% through user fees. Total capital and special projects combined represent $7,133,400 of a budget request. Approximately $6.4 million is for new or improvements to tangible capital assets, and approximately $700,000 represents amounts for special projects such as operating studies. This slide highlights to Council the funding streams being used for capital. Last week, staff were advised that for 2019 only, the federal government has committed to a doubling of the gas tax funds. This budget does not reflect the additional $440,700 in additional funds. This slide presents to Council the 2019 capital budget by type of asset. The largest asset improvement will be under the category of rolling stock at just under $1.3 million. The next charts in the slide deck are all related to capital. They present to Council by service area what is in the 2019 capital. Again, these include both tangible capital assets and projects that are done within each department. Under corporate services, $120,100 is related to information technology, including $8,000 for a special printer that will be used by planning, building, and public works. In addition, there's a request for Microsoft Office softgrade upgrades, which will ensure that Excel, Outlook, Word, and PowerPoint are more current versions and are supported. Also included under special projects is $45,000 towards a corporate strategic plan, as mentioned by the mayor, and this will act as a roadmap for this term of council. The most notable item under fire is the replacement of the Station 2 fire rescue truck. This amount has been increased to $700,000 from the $568,000 that originally appeared in the budget. This is based on preliminary review of RFP results. That stands for the request for proposal results. Staff made some adjustments to the 10-year capital plan in order to ensure that there would be adequate funds in the fire reserve going forward. Under transportation, General Council will see the replacement of a dump truck and a tandem truck. Also included is a roads needs study. This project has been moved up from 2020. It's now in 2019. This will provide more accurate condition information and will be used in decision making and asset management. The 2019 budget includes 4.5 kilometers of surface treatment to roads and just under 0.5 kilometers of asphalt work. 2 bridge projects are included in the 2019 budget. Council should also note that 2 other bridge projects will be commencing in 2019 that were previously approved. Bridge 23 on Boyle Road, which is shared with Wainfleet, and Bridge 29 on South Chippewa Road. That is a total of 4 bridge restoration projects to be commenced in 2019. Under traffic operations, much of this work, approximately $913,000, is along Highway 20 or West Street in Smithville and is related to the Niagara Region Highway 20 improvements. So that includes sidewalk replacement, some new sidewalk, and streetscaping. Under wastewater, the main projects upgrades to West Street and Wade Road mains. They are also related to the Highway 20 project. Under stormwater capital, there's a stormwater master drainage plan, which is mainly funded through development charges. This study will assist the township in designing a drainage plan that will accommodate both growth and the current capital that we have. Also under water, the main project, the West Street main, is again related to the Highway 20 project. Small requests under cemetery and rec programming. Parks capital, improvements to Wellandport Park, and a new park is going up, is being requested for the Smithville Station Park. That's the Mars development. And the Smithville Square Parkette, some additional funding is required for that. Recreation facilities, this basically is covering some of our halls that the township owns, some improvements to those facilities. Under the planning department, various studies that council has seen, some of these before in some reports from planning. Staff were informed last week that the Niagara region has suspended the Smarter Niagara Incentive Program, which we call SNIP, for 2019, which impacts some of these projects that are on this slide. Staff is hopeful that perhaps this decision may be reconsidered. This decision impacts $79,800 of anticipated funding for the 4 secondary plans in this budget. It also impacts $30,000 of anticipated funding for the Wellandport Community Improvement Plan and the Wellandport Streetscape Master Plan. Both these projects had indications of staff support, but no funding approval has been granted in terms of funding implications and alternative sources of funding. For the library, the transfer to the library reserve was reduced by $50,000 in 2019, and that was in light of looking at the 10-year capital plan for the library. And a transfer was not required this year, and it will be adjusted accordingly as the capital is reviewed each year. So the next 3 slides look at the 10-year capital plans, and those are also included in Schedule D. Over the next 10 years, including 2019, projected costs are just over $61 million. This slide indicates that financing for the proposed capital, this has changed since the March 4th report in that some proposed debenture financing has been added to this plan. It should also be noted that the requirements under the capital reserve of just over $5 million for the tangible capital projects will be very difficult to reach based on the current contribution of $177,000 annually to this reserve. This slide indicates, again, it's the 10-year capital plan, but it looks at the projects that aren't tangible capital assets. It's what we call special projects, and are typically operating studies or improvements that don't meet the requirements of a capitalization. That's the end of the presentation, and it's open for questions.
Thank you so much, Director of Finance, for that presentation and for your diligence in the preparation of the budget, as well as to all staff in general for their contributions to the budget and the hard work that you put in making the adjustments, as you heard from council and from the public. There were significant changes, and we're thankful that you worked hard to try to accommodate the many pressures that the budget faces. At this time, I'd like to open the floor for questions on this this proposed budget. Who's going to start? I don't think we're going to get away with no questions or comments. So, Councilor Rayner, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll start. Hopefully I don't upset anybody by asking this question. But, through to the Director of Finance, the Town Hall renovation, former library of $300,000, that's part of the budget?
Yes.
I'm just wondering if thoughts could be about deferring it, Mr. Mayor, that...
Can we put the speaker on? Yeah.
It is on. All right. I don't know what else can go on today. If you take the 300,000 divided by the 64,000, which is equivalent to 1%, it's 4.69. That almost erases the increase, other than the MERS 2019 allocation. As far as priorities goes, considering everything else we got, I'm sure we can utilize that room for something in the next little while, but I don't think we need to spend $300,000 when we've got a lot of pressing items on the go, and it would substantially reduce the budget increase for this year.
Actually, I hate to burst your bubble. It won't, but I'm going to let the Director of Finance answer that question.
Thank you. Through Mayor Bilsma to Councillor Rayner. The renovations to the library to accommodate the building department are funded 100% from the building reserve, which is funded 100% from user fees. So it would have no impact on the operating budget if it was to be removed.
All right, then my question is, why is it even in there then?
Well, because the Director of Finance, if you would like to answer that question.
Yeah, it's a capital project that still needs approval from the council, because it may not be council's plan to use those funds in that matter. So it's staff's recommendation, but council has to approve it.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Cody.
This is my first crack at this, so I'm going to go after a little one to begin with. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I assume the $17,000 for a new website is to hire an outside company to design a new website?
Yes.
Is there not something we could do, like offer a open competition to graphics design students from Niagara College, in which we then offer a scholarship as a reward for the winning website design? And even if we offered a $5,000 scholarship for the winner of something like that, it's still a $12,000 reduction in designing a website for the town. Can we look at something like that rather than just paying out a $17,000 to a private company, which seems steep for a web page?
Director of Finance.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Bilsma, to Councillor Cody. The design also includes the platform. Right now, we're using free software, so we would like to get an enhanced platform as well. So we did budget funds in 2018, and when we started the process, we realized that we didn't budget enough based on what is out there. So what would happen is it would include a platform and a design, and then our own staff would maintain it. So to answer the question, it does include new software.
Okay. On this side. Yeah, Councillor Trombetta. Oh, you're still writing. All right, going to go back to Councillor Rayner for a second time.
Is there a limit?
Well, right now it's at 2, so at the discretion of the rest of the councillors when they call the question. Anyways, keep going.
Okay, through the director, a couple of weeks ago, the mayor brought up the cost to, the operating cost to keep the MERS going was 2.19 for the labor and 1.55 for the service cost, as far as a percentage, meaning 3.74. And we discussed that, and then we said, well, then what's left? Well, 4.68 was the number, and we took 3.74 from that, and we had less than 1% left. Is there any change to that? Is there any change to the labor costs? Like, what we were concerned was what we had before with the MERS was we had this very expensive building, and what's it going to cost to operate it? Nobody had an answer. All of a sudden now the answer's coming, and it gobbles up a lot of our operating costs. And the building of the MERS tied up a lot of capital for many years when there's other projects on the go, but you can only debenture so much, and debenture something we didn't really want to get into till lately when we started doing the bridge, and then we went to the MERS. We were debenture free, I believe, until that point. So my concern is this number of the 2.19%, or approximately 140,000 labor to do the MERS, and the service cost to operate it at 99,000, is this going to be on a continual basis, or is this going to be something that can be resolved if we get this year, and the MERS can start generating its own dollars in order to keep operating?
Through Mayor Bilsma, Councillor Rayner. I would start by referring to 2 schedules that we did include in this report to provide additional information to Council as a result of the March 4th meeting. We added Schedule G, which breaks down the financing for the rec center that's included in this budget, and as well as the increased operating costs. We also provided Schedule H, which provides council with a proposed schedule, so there could be an understanding of why operating costs are proposed to increase. So on Schedule G, as part of the rec center financing, there was some funds budgeted for increased operating costs, and it was part of the rec center plan from the beginning. And it covers the costs related to the services that the township was already providing. So we already had a library and an arena, but those costs have now gone up in this new facility. So they total $87,400. There are service level requests, and they related to the rec center, they total $106,700. So we've estimated the operating costs at $194,100. There was some funding, $119,100. The difference is $75,000. So that is an additional cost to this budget. These costs are not going to go away. They're in the operating base. The costs that we're proposing, such as utilities and cleaning, I don't think they're going to be reduced dramatically in the future. And the staffing requests that are here are just basically to provide the services that are on Schedule H. There is some budget figures for increased facility rental. I don't know the exact amount right now. There are funds for facility rentals, and that number is an estimate because staff didn't really know what to expect. So at the end of 2019, we're hopeful that facility rental will actually be higher than what we budgeted, but to answer your question, these costs are not going to disappear.
Okay, Councilor Rayner? Yep.
Yes, further to the numbers that you mentioned the last time, the 3.74, then my question through to the director is, with regards to this budget on operating and capital for 2019, how much is this consumed by the MERS as a percentage? We said 3.74, but you've modified things and you've changed some numbers. But what I'd like to hear is the number that you feel that the operating and capital percentage of the total is just dealing with the MERS.
Through you, Mayor Bilsma. Well, if you want to talk about the capital, the levy increased $307,000 as the third year of the financing, which is in the levy. And in total, over 3 years, 2017, 2018, and 2019, the levy has increased $888,500 to help finance the Recreation Center. In terms of operating, I would say that the additional $75,000 that wasn't funded through the financing plan would be the additional increase. So it would be the 307 plus the 75,000.
CA wanted to just chime in for a second, so if she has something she wants to get on the record, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Bilsma, to Councillor Rayner. One thing that you have to note is that going forward, the rec center will never be fully financed by user fees. It's usually in best practices about a 60-40 ratio, and so we will try to achieve that, but the base costs are never covered solely by user fees.
Okay, I'm confused with the 75 because what we were given on the 2009 draft was the recreational receptionist, the recreational part-time programmer, the facility parks addition, the library increase in part-time, and the library increase in part-time hours on Sundays, which worked out to about 140,000, which is what we talked about. This 140,000 is now 75,000?
So yes, they did some work on that. So you really kind of, you can use the draft as a reference, but we have to deal with what was presented tonight. So I'm just going to let the Director of Finance just see if she can. It might not be an apples-to-apples comparison, probably the simple answer, because one was a draft. They reworked it based on comments they received from us and from the public. Director?
Yes. I would refer to Schedule G. I think we tried to break down and answer the questions that are being asked. I can see if I can bring it up, perhaps. Not on this screen. Yeah. I can go over it again. Do you want me to go through it again? I don't have the file here on this laptop, unfortunately.
Oh.
I could get it if you.
Okay.
I don't know if it's really, the important thing is that it was dropped from 140 down to 75.
Essentially, yes.
But we still can't do anything about the service cost of 99,000.
Correct.
That's the cost, which is 1.55. So if you add that together with the 75,000, that's 1.17 and 1.55. So that makes 2.72 of the total budget is the MERS.
Yeah.
As compared to 3.74.
One way to look at it,
So
yes,
it went down 1%.
Yeah.
Well, it's just, what I'm concerned about is, of course, is the 888,000 that was put in is put into the tax base, which is now compounded every time there's a tax increase every year, because it's in the tax base, which means that the 5.1% of 2017 and the 5.1% of 2018 and the 5% going in now, compounded is 15.99. You might as well say 16. We're on year 5 of the YMCA, which is 52,500 that we're giving away to Grimsby, money that we could have used. So that is about 4.5% so far we've paid of the 8%. So we're into 20.49% without the operating and capital costs of this year's being added. And if we put this number together, we're going to be close to 26% as compared to what it was prior to these two not being in the budgets back a few years ago. So we've still got a lot of tax increases. Yeah. And that's my concern. And the other concern, of course, is that the MERS does consume a tremendous amount of taxpayers' money, as can be seen by the 16%. And a lot of the people, especially out in the country, as I know I've knocked on doors, don't use it. So this is a considerable tax burden. And now we've got an operating cost on it that every year is going to further add to the cost and further restrict our ability, both in the MERS as a build being a capital restriction because of the amount of money that's being required, but now on the operating side, it's going to also consume on that side. So we're getting a situation here where we've really gotten into something that's a massive liability in the sense, yes, it's a rec facility, but there's so many other things in this township that need to get done, and based on the numbers that we see here, there's not a lot of percentage left to do that with, which is going to make it very difficult down the road, I think, to get things done. I'm just presenting the numbers as they're presented to me, and we discussed it 2 weeks ago and said there isn't a lot to work with. So I'm concerned that I just hope it doesn't drag us down. And we've got a lot of things to get done, and we're not going to have much money to do it when we pay all the bills for this building.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Trombetta.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I might go back and forth and then come back again probably 4 times like Councillor Rayner did here. So, you know, the budget that we got in hand, you know, I'm going through it. You know, it says, you know, the biggest chunk of it was an additional arena parks operator. So the way I see it is that and it's just a comment anyways, our parks guys are inside the arena now, and now that the weather's changed, they're coming outside. That's our staff that fills our potholes, runs our graders, cleans our ditches. If one of them is tied up for the MERS, that means we lose somebody out in the field. And that's a big asset for especially a guy in the rural area. You know, having a guy that obviously helps us in the rural area instead of being committed to the MERS is a big thing, especially if someone gets sick. Because it happened a little while back where we had some winter control issues where 2 guys got sick. One was on a leave, and another gentleman got sick, and we were down some truck drivers. And it really affected some of the winter control operations. You know, if we're hiring somebody to be an additional arena/parks operator, it kind of benefits both worlds that we have, our rural and our MERS, or recreation facility, what everybody calls it now. You know, the budget that came in here at 5.6, correct, Donna? It's the actual number? Or I'm seeing 5.6 is where we're at. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not up there, sorry. Yes, I have it up here, sorry.
You know, there was an article in the paper, Grimsby came in at 9.8. And that's a huge number. We're not close to that. You know, I do think that, you know, any public works service that we can get extra in this budget is beneficial for a lot of things. I understood the way it was presented before, stated that it was just for MERS and MERS only. I don't think it is that way. I think this staff level is for all of West Lincoln. You know, and the way it was designated kind of showed that it was, and that's the way I perceived it. You know, an administration clerk, you know, that helps with collecting our taxes. Somebody that's maybe on a vacation, or somebody that, you know, these positions are multi-use positions, and you know, I'm not opposed to it in some senses, because it's a utility position for all of West Lincoln. I did have one question, and I don't know if this is through you, Mr. Mayor, to Director of Finance. You had $76,000 for the roads needs study. I know we debated last week about, and this might have to refer this to our Director, DePaula, for Public Works there. We bounced around hopefully having a study to get some more. I guess it's my goal, Mr. Mayor, is to roll roads out. I want to get some of our mud roads, you know, maybe a 50-50 blend, and that's my goal. I'm going to state it here. I want to fix some of these dust complaints and pothole problems that we have. Is that study that you're bumping up from 2020 to 2019, is that sort of what we were looking for discussing last week, or is that just something, because it wasn't brought up at the Public Works meeting? Can you help me out with that, or maybe Director?
Yep. I'll start, and if...
oh, were you here last week? I can't remember if you were here last week at the meeting. Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, Don.
At the admin meeting on March 18th, Director DePaula presented some information on converting gravel roads to paved surfaces. And part of that discussion was about knowing the condition of the roads and what you're working with. And in the 2020 budget, we did have an update for the road needs study, or an condition assessment. It has different names. Basically what it does is it looks at the entire transportation road network, paved roads and unpaved roads, and it will look at various items such as condition and probably travel counts, I would imagine. And it'll help the basis of asset management, which is a requirement under provincial legislation. And it'll also provide council with more information about the infrastructure that we have. So it wasn't a direction from that meeting. It's just something we thought would help further council's goal of addressing some road issues by providing accurate information.
He's the Director of Public Works is satisfied with that answer.
Okay, so that's sort of what I was kind of just wondering on that issue there. I also was kind of wondering about the old library. But Councillor Rayner got that answered for me, because it did show $300,000 in there. Like I said, you know, we're at 5.6. You know, yeah, we'd all love to be at 0, but you know, 0 gives us problems later down the road. I know neighboring municipalities, you know, they came in very, very high, and you know, and that's the reason why they're coming in that high, is because of their zeros for the, you know, for the longest amounts of years. Again, you know, seeing, I know I'm reiterating myself again, but seeing an additional arena parks operator here, again, that's a utility position for all of West Lincoln. I think the way it was presented was it was designated for the MERS only, and getting some more feedback from other members of staff that it was a utility position used for all of West Lincoln. So just wanted to make those comments, Mr. Mayor, and
Thank you.
let that be heard. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm going to go to Member Riley.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Thank you,
Councillor Riley.
That's all right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I want to actually ask a question to Councillor Rayner. So through you, you made it very clear. I'm very new, but you made it very clear over the last little while that you're a numbers guy. So that being the case, I'm kind of dumbfounded by the fact that you're so surprised by the costs of the MERS, because you are a numbers guy. You seem to know it, left, right, and center, and you're throwing these numbers around. So I don't know if you could answer this, or if you just want to leave it rhetorical. But when you stand up here and you kind of talk so poorly about our facility here, I kind of wondering how you didn't catch this sooner. Yeah, to me, it kind of feels like at least you're explaining that it's been a situation that you've been deceived, and I just want to know how that was possible. If you could answer to that by any means.
That's not a problem. Thank you. Since we're having a war on Rayner tonight, let's everybody take me on, and no problem. I got the shoulders. Anyways, that was brought up last year, as well as Councillor Bilsma at the time, that we both raised big concerns about how are we going to operate this building? How are we going to pay for this? And none of those answers came. The bigger this building got, and everybody knows I had a presentation back in about 2 years ago saying I am 100% for an arena and a walking track and a splash pad, which could have been built without a tax increase using the turbine money. We didn't need a $1.98 million gymnasium, a $4.2 million library, a $750,000 lobby. We wanted to get a nice arena. But we went from getting a little car to getting a Cadillac. And then the question came, okay, now that we're getting this Cadillac, how are we going to pay for it? Nobody had an answer. And Councillor Bilsma and I were both saying, but this is going to cost. No, well, we'll talk about that later. Well, this is the part that I'm worried about now, is, okay, we've got a tremendous cost here, $31 million by the time it's paid. It's going to take till 2048. I won't be around to see it, along with a lot of other seniors that I knocked on the door. It's a lifetime sentence. A lot of us will not be using it. So the question comes then, okay, how are we going to keep this thing going? So I would think it would be self-sufficient. Let's try to make it so that it pays for itself, because the people who aren't using it have already paid for the building. Let the people who are using it pay to keep it running. It makes sense. However, as the CAO just mentioned, it's 60-40, so it doesn't look like it's going to happen. But by the same token, we have a massive township to look after, and all our money is sunk into one basket right now. And unfortunately, the numbers, maybe had they been available 2 years ago when the decision was made, they could have downsized it like I wished it was done, still accomplished it, and not have all this additional overheads, because we went so darn big and so crazy on this thing that now we've got a massive building that costs a lot of money to maintain, not to mention just the cost of paying for it. So we got a double whammy right now that we didn't expect. That's the upsetting thing about it, and that's the thing that gets me concerned, because having knocked on the doors in the country, I assure you, the majority of the people were not pleased. And I'm sure, Councillor Riley, you knocked on the doors in Ward 3. Were the majority of people's in favor or not in favor?
There's definitely a 50-50 toss-up.
Yeah, so there wasn't over enthusiastic about it. So we're getting that everywhere. Now we've got this, we've got to work with it. But the question is, we don't want the operating and capital costs to restrict getting other things done in this township, which are just as important to the people who live everywhere else in town that want to get something done. And people in the rurals, people in town, we've got other things to do. We've got this building built. How can we minimize the operating and capital costs that have to be applied against it every year in order to free that money up so that we can get the rest of this township done? And that's what I'm concerned about. That's why I'm speaking up. Yes, I'm good with numbers. I love numbers. That's just the way it is. However, I'd also like to look at it to say, how practical is this? And are we not sinking a lot of money into something and restricting getting other things done? We've got to get everything else done in this township, and it looks like the money's going in one direction. It's certainly going that way for capital. And in tying up this amount of money and debenturing this amount of money restricts the amount of capital we can do for other projects. There are bridges that need to be done. We could have done some bridges. We could have built this new arena for like $12 or $14 million. We could have freed up that other $9 or $10 million. Got bridges done, got more roads done, made a 50-50 split, made everybody happy. We sunk it all into one basket. And now we have to fight to get this bridge done. Now we restricted our reserves. We got no reserves left because we blew it on getting the bridge done. But unfortunately, we can't get other things done because it restricts our capital. We've got so much debentured right now. So that's where I'm coming from. You You look after the pennies, as my parents said, and the dollars will look after themselves. But right now, we're spending a lot of money on this one building, and now we've got to spend a lot of money every year just to operate this building. Now there's concerns because you've only got so much money and you can't expect to keep bleeding the people. There's a point where there's going to be a revolt. People are going to see massive tax increases over the next 25 to 30 years. You work it out, taken it to the accountant, done a spreadsheet. It continues to grow because it's compound every year. The last 10 or 15 years are going to be massive. You're going to have, it's going to be $15,000 to $20,000 as a whole at the end probably. And that doesn't include MPAC increases that happen every year. The taxes are going to increase because every time you add to the operating cost or whatever you've got, you've added it to what you've already built in the tax base, which is the MERS sitting there.
Thank you.
Well, I've got to answer this question. He had it wide open, and I'm telling you why.
Councillor Riley, if you could just refrain from engaging the other councillors, direct it through the chair. We'll try to find answers for you, but I don't really want this to boil down into.
That's understandable.
I do actually feel
thought it would have been a quicker, shorter answer than that.
Councillor Rayner, you did ask him a question. He's answered it. And I just don't want this.
Can I just summarize it, please, Mr. Mayor?
I'll give you.
I want to get this thing forward. I want people to be happy. I want to get things done. But I'm also trying to look after all facets and aspects of being a councillor, which is looking after not just my ward, but the township of West Lincoln. So when I'm looking at this, I'm trying, how can we make this thing work? And I already asked you that question. How much do you need to get it going? Do you think you can make it self-sufficient down the road? You said, give me a chance to get it going, and I'll try. I'm willing to support this because I believe in you.
Well, that's not the message I'm getting when I hear you stand up there and it sounds like you're trying to tear it down.
But I'm trying, but it's got to get to the point where we can free up more money to get other necessities done that need to be done in this.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm going to move on.
Mr. Mayor, can I just finish the other part? I won't
Unless
engage.
you.
I will not engage with.
Well, engage through me.
Okay. So the other thing I think is worth addressing, and I think a few of us here will agree, I don't appreciate how it seems to be it's the rural versus MERS. I know firsthand that we have people that are coming from all over West Lincoln that are using this facility. This isn't Smithville against everybody else. This is West Lincoln. This belongs to West Lincoln, and everyone needs to kind of come together and recognize that. I've heard repeatedly since I've been in my position here about how it feels like it's all rural communities not getting this and that because of MERS. MERS is for everybody, and I think council needs to recognize that as well. This isn't a matter of a war between the wards. You know what I mean? We need to kind of pull ourselves together, and I think it's important to acknowledge. I know you've gone to I don't know how many houses, and they've said that they haven't liked it or they don't support it, but we know that people are coming from other wards that are using it. It's not just isolated just to Smithville. So that being said, I think we need to start looking at this in a much more positive manner and actually start looking at how we can make this operational instead of just tearing it down and talking about 16% tax compound over how many years that just keeps coming up every other council meeting. We need to focus on what's going to make it more financially viable.
Thank you. Anybody from this side? Councillor Gannan?
Do I dare?
I think you should.
Okay. Well, I had all kinds of questions about numbers and so on as well. However, what it boils down to me is this, and I took this from every scrap of information that comes from every office here, and it tells us on the bottom of all of the paper, the Township of West Lincoln will be a community that values our heritage, preserves our environment and natural resources, fosters entrepreneurial spirit, and provides excellent quality of life. That excellent quality of life is what we were hoping to attain with a community center, a hub that would bring people together, a place for people to do a sort of advance some intergenerational activities, some learning opportunities, some physical opportunities, no matter what stage you're at. I know that the Age Friendly Advisory Committee has worked diligently to try to put together what other communities are doing so that we can look at what we're going to be able eventually to offer for seniors. There's just so much good that can come out of it that I hate to see us argue over it over and over and over again. I know that it's been said by some rural councillors, people who live outside, that they want to get some stuff done. And we keep hearing we want to get some stuff done. But things are getting done. I mean, if we look today, just in the list of work to be done in the 2019 budget, there's $1,512,000 in 6 different projects that will be done, including a couple of bridges, 3 bridges in fact, and a couple of roads that will be dealt with. So it's not like this community center is taking all of the budget money. It's taking more than perhaps some anticipated, but we need to get it up, we need to get it running, and as I think our Director of Finance mentioned a couple of times, we're not going to know how much money we're going to have in revenue until we get it running. And if we don't have it running regularly, and it does end up being closed, and people don't use the opportunities to rent the facilities for birthday parties and showers and family gatherings that was talked about even today by Ms. Shime, then we're not going to seek and get the revenue that is a potential. We need to be looking at other ways of making sure that people can gather together in this wonderful facility that we have. And I think that it's easy to attack the soft charges. It's easy to look at the soft things in the budget, the niceties, and say we don't need those. But those are the things that I firmly believe add to the quality of life of our community. Those are the kinds of things that bring people together as a community, and to badger it and rail against it and criticize it and over and over and over again does us no good. The decision was made to build it. It was built for the number of dollars that it said it would be built. It went to tender. It was a design build. It didn't go over budget. It's done on time. I don't think we can ask for much more than that, other than for people to come out and enjoy it. Thank you.
Councillor Cody for a second time.
Yeah, I just wanted to get some comments on record to echo Councillor Ganane and Councillor Riley. Every time I've been in the recreation center, I've bumped into someone from my ward, a rural ward nowhere near the recreation center. So to say that the people in rural West Lincoln are not using it is entirely incorrect. I think that we need to, I know a lot of concerns over the last week have been the schedule in our budget that showed it being closed, which I hope we could all agree is ridiculous. Like, we may as well pay $22 million for a shed that we're storing things in. That should not even be an option on the table. Honestly, I don't think the budget goes far enough. I would actually agree with Mrs. Waddingham. Did I get that right? I can't believe we have a recreation center we're going to close on Sundays. That's 50% of someone's weekend when people typically engage in their recreation activities. So next year, I would like us to see expand the budget to open the facility 7 days a week. I think I'd like us to stop talking about Grimsby YMCA and the building of the mirrors. Like, they're decisions made by past councils. We can't change them. They're here now. We need to move forward, and we have to move forward and operate it. I have to agree with Trombetta. 5.63% is not a huge increase, certainly in comparison to municipalities around us, which we have to look at. I would think that the majority of municipalities are going to have somewhat of an increase. Costs go up. The budget, I don't think, is terrible as it is, and the mirrors, I definitely is not an option to cut from it.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we've all had an opportunity to speak, except Councillor Jonker, so he's going to take his turn. Kick at the can.
I've been kind of quiet because, yeah, I've been my first kick at the can of a big budget like this, but when you look through the numbers, you try to find, just for an example, I'll go to the library, not to pick on you, Vanessa, at all, but you're looking at things. Okay, they want to spend $7,500 on automation machine. They want to increase the Sunday for 4 hours, but yet when you look at it as well, they're also saving us money, and I just lost it. So yeah, when I look through this budget, you're going, where can we cut? And it's pretty hard to cut. And I hate to say that because my Dutch background says we can always find a way to cut. But yeah, on page 13 of, it's page 134. But I was looking at just the library. Okay, we can cut back on this. We can maybe cut back on that automation machine. But yet at the same time, the budget for the library has gone down by $8,550. So I think the staff has done a good job of trying to keep it as low as they could. And yeah, I hate to say it, but I agree with Jason, the 5% sounds terrible, but I think we're stuck with it.
Well, I'm just going to put out the fact, again, that I started with, without repeating myself, just say that staff has worked really, really hard. I know that they did some extraordinary work in order to find cost savings. When I came onto council 4 years ago, and I delved into the first budget at that time, 2015, and I thought, oh, you know, here we go, we can cut here, cut there, and I was very impressed at that time how well the budget, how lean it was, how effective it was. So I'd like to repeat that, what I said in 2015, which is kudos to the staff for coming forward with a very efficient budget process. Yes, it's. I guess you can argue that at one level, a budget is a process whereby 14,000 or 15,000 residents equally hate how the money is spent in the municipality. So as long as we get that balance right, that they all hate it equally, you know, we must be doing something right. This may be the pejorative or the negative way of looking at it, but at the same time, I think that this is a budget that reflects direction, where we would like to go as a municipality, even in an infancy stage, and it reflects a balance that we need to strike. So I just wanted to kind of get those points on and see if there's, keep looking, I put my head this way and just see if anybody wants to get one more comment. Then with that, we're going to call the vote. All those in favor? And that is approved, no opposed, and we'll call it carried. Thank you very much, staff. Director of Finance and staff as a whole. Big bouquet of flowers on your desk tomorrow. Actually, I got something better. It's maple syrup, if you'll take it. It's boiling tonight. It's boiling. It's that fresh. All right. Moving on. We have members of council remarks. Hopefully they're brief, but councillor have remarks that have not already been stated. I'm going to go there.
Just thanks everybody for your hard work on the budget. I'm glad we've decided to utilize the building we've built. And again, I appreciate all your hard work.
Councillor Jonker.
Same as Chris. Councillor Cody, sorry.
Councillor Cody, it's okay. Councillor Ganahan.
I have something that's different from that, but it actually is a request. I attended the hospital meeting on Tuesday past, and the committee asked each of the 3 councillors who were there to come back to their council and Public Works staff, actually, so Director, this would affect you as well, talking about the tiredness and how the winter weather has played havoc with some of the signs. The request was made that if the committee came forward with some large banners to put up in the each of the towns across either the main street or in a prominent place, whether we would be able to do that. And so I did hear back already from a councillor in Lincoln, and they have agreed to do that. I haven't heard yet back from Grimsby, but I think we need to put our heads together and think about a place where we also might be able to display some kind of a banner to show that the 3 communities are still working towards unity for the hospital. So.
Okay, we'll work on that as staff, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so this past, I guess it was last week there, Councillor Cody and myself got a chance to go out to Kingston and do an AMO workshop. Actually 2 of them, which was actually really rewarding, not just in the opportunity to get a better understanding of our position and what it entails, and and actually getting a better understanding of land use planning, but also networking. It was actually incredible. Some of the other councillors, relatively new, that what they were experiencing in their communities and some of how they kind of troubleshoot that and even kind of creeping on us and asking us how we're dealing with certain things. So I just wanted to mention, I thought that was a really good opportunity. And I mentioned it because even for yourself, Mr. Mayor, I don't know what you have planned, if you have any, but I think it would be definitely beneficial to kind of have you even be out there with some of the ammo workshop. I think there's another one in August we plan on attending. I hope you'll consider going because it is a fantastic networking opportunity, and I think we would be at a disadvantage as a community if we weren't, exploring all options, because they have a lot of great wisdom and advice to share. And if we're going to grow, we need to rely on those resources outside of that. Outside of that, I don't know if I can ask this question or not, but I was just curious, do we know the confirmation on Staff Sergeant Rom regarding, I think he was coming in May? Do we ever get a confirmation from that? I know there is going to be a joint day, I guess, for you to Fire Chief Dennis Fisher. Okay. Okay, awesome, thank you. And then other than that, I think that's it. I do want to thank staff again for your time and sacrifice. I'm sure there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that you poured into this. It definitely shows, and we can't thank you enough for taking all of our questions and some of our frustration and trying to understand why things aren't just as easy as saying, well, just do this, and taking the time to actually educate us too. So we do appreciate that. So other than that, that's all my remarks for now.
Councillor Trombetta. Nothing. Shakes his head. Councillor Rayner.
Thank you. I'd too like to thank the staff and thank Donna for giving me all the information. I know it isn't easy, but I believe in what I believe in, and sometimes it makes it a little awkward. Thank you.
All right. With that, we have no new items of business. Seeing none, we're going to move on to bylaws. Councillor Gannan, you have that resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Cody that leave be granted to introduce bylaws number 2019-23, 2019-24, 2019-25, 2019-26, 2019-27, 2019-28, and 2019-29, and that the same shall be considered to have been read a first, second, and third time with one reading, and are hereby adopted, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and affix the corporate seal thereto, any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding.
Thank you, Councillor. You've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Gannan and seconded by Councillor Cody. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. There are no confidential matters, so I declare this meeting adjourned at the hour of 8:22. Thank you very much. Have a good night.